Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to HK Cheating Stories. We appreciate each and every one of you joining us. Where in the world are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's get the story started. My name is Mark, and for the longest time, I believed that love was something you built. That if you worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, gave enough, everything would fall into place. I was wrong. One night, over candlelight and cheap wine, my wife looked me in the eye and admitted she was never attracted to me, that she had been with someone else. And then she laughed. That was the moment everything changed. By sunrise, I was gone. No notes, no goodbyes, just silence. Because some betrayals don't deserve an argument. They deserve absence. And this is how I disappeared from her life forever. She was drunk when she said it. Sitting across from me at the dinner table, swirling her third glass of wine, Emily leaned back in her chair, exhaled, and smirked. The candlelight flickered between us, casting soft shadows on her face. She looked relaxed, a little too relaxed. Then, with a lazy tilt of her head, she said the words that shattered everything. I was never attracted to you, Mark. For a second, I thought I misheard her. What? I asked, my voice steady despite the sudden tightness in my chest. She let out a soft, almost pitying laugh. I mean, I care about you. You're a nice guy? You make sure I'm okay. That's why I'm here. My stomach twisted. Emily, what the hell are you talking about? She sighed, setting her glass down with a slow, deliberate movement. Then she looked me right in the eye, her expression unreadable. I've never really been into you, Mark. Not in that way. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. I just stared at her, unable to process the weight of what she was saying. So why did you marry me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She shrugged. Because you were safe. You were stable. And I thought that would be enough. She paused for a moment, swirling the wine in her glass again before taking another sip. And then, just like a blade being driven deeper, she kept going. But then I met someone my type. I felt my jaw clench. Your type? I repeated, my hands gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. She nodded, almost casually. Yeah, I mean, you're sweet and all, but I've always been into, I don't know, men who are a little rougher, more dangerous. Someone who breaks the rules, you know? And when I met him, I just couldn't resist. A sharp, cold sensation spread through my chest, like ice water replacing the blood in my veins. And I forced the word out, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Emily smirked again, then tilted her head. One thing led to another. That was all she said. No apology, no regret. Just a lazy, drunken confession over a candlelit dinner I had spent the entire afternoon preparing for her. My world shifted in that moment. I should have been angry. I should have flipped the table, shouted, demanded an explanation, anything. But instead, I just sat there, silent, listening. Because it wasn't just the betrayal that stung. It was the way she admitted it. Like it was nothing. Like she was telling me about her day at work or some funny story she heard. I watched her, memorizing every detail of this moment. The flicker of the candlelight in her wine glass. The way her lips curled slightly in amusement. The way she seemed so comfortable, so casual about the fact that she had destroyed our marriage. And then, something inside me broke. Not in a loud, dramatic way. No, it was quiet. Cold. Like a switch flipping. I knew, right then and there, that there was no coming back from this. No conversation. No second chances. She didn't deserve my anger. She didn't deserve a fight. She deserved to wake up one day and realize that I was gone. That I had slipped through her fingers like sand, disappearing before she even had the chance to beg me to stay. So I nodded. Just nodded. I see. I said, my voice disturbingly calm. Emily frowned slightly, maybe sensing something shift in me. Maybe expecting me to react in some way. But I didn't give her that satisfaction. I stood up, gathering the plates as if nothing had happened. As if this was just another dinner, another conversation. I'm heading to bed, I told her. She blinked at me in surprise. You're not mad. I forced a small smile. No, not at all. And I wasn't. Because in that moment, I had already made my decision. By sunrise, I would be gone. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying Emily's words over and over like a broken record. I was never attracted to you. I stayed because you were safe. I met someone my type. Every syllable cut like a blade. slicing through the years I had spent believing we were happy, believing that I was building something real. I turned my head to look at her. She was asleep, her face peaceful, her breath steady. No guilt, no remorse, just content, as if nothing had happened. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a hollow, numbing clarity. For 2 years, I had devoted myself to this marriage. I worked tirelessly to provide for her, to build a future where she never had to worry about a thing. I was the guy who woke up at 5 in the morning, answered emails before breakfast, and spent my days in endless meetings, making sure we had a secure life. I pushed through stress, exhaustion, and the weight of responsibilities because I thought that's what a good husband did. I sacrificed time, energy, and pieces of myself for her. And yet, none of it had been enough. The signs had been there. At first, I ignored them. She had grown distant, barely acknowledging me when I walked through the door after a long day. Conversations became shorter, her affection colder. But I told myself it was just the natural rhythm of marriage, that she was just tired, or stressed, or going through a phase. I never let myself consider the truth, that she had already checked out, that maybe she had never really been in it to begin with. I thought back to the beginning. When we first met, she was full of laughter and life. She made me feel like I was the only man in the world, and I wanted to give her everything. I worked harder, thinking that success and stability were the best ways to show love. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't dangerous. But I was reliable. I was constant. And I thought that was enough. Looking back, I see it now. I was never the man she wanted. I was the man she settled for. And when she finally admitted it, casually, carelessly, over a glass of wine, it shattered the illusion I had been holding on to for so long. A bitter laugh escaped me as I lay there in the dark. All those times I stayed late at the office, thinking I was building a future for us. She wasn't waiting for me. She was finding comfort in someone else. All those gifts I brought home from my business trips, thinking they would make her smile, they were just distractions. All those weekend getaways I planned, thinking we needed to reconnect. She had already disconnected. I had spent 2 years fighting for something she had never even valued. And now I was done. I turned onto my side, my heart beating slow and steady as the decision cemented itself in my mind. By the time the sun rose, she would wake up to an empty house. No note, no confrontation, no closure, because she didn't deserve one. She had made her choice. Now it was my turn. I woke up before the sun. The house was silent, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old wooden floors. Emily was still asleep, curled up on her side, oblivious to the fact that by the time she opened her eyes, I would be gone. But as I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faint outline of my packed duffel bag near the door, I thought back to the moment when I still believed I could fix us, when I still thought there was something worth saving. It was just a few weeks ago when I had finally admitted to myself that things felt off. Emily had been distant for months. Conversations had become short and clipped. Her kisses had grown colder, and she barely acknowledged me when I walked through the door after a long day. I told myself it was just the natural ebb and flow of marriage, that we were settling into routine, that maybe she was just tired, stressed, something, anything, other than the truth I refused to acknowledge. So I decided to do something about it. I thought maybe she just needed a reminder. Maybe if I showed her how much I loved her, how much I cared, things would get better. That's why I planned the dinner. I spent the entire afternoon preparing. I made her favorite meal, chicken parmesan with garlic mashed potatoes. I hadn't made it since our first date, back when she used to look at me like I was the only man in the world. I set the table with candles, dimmed the lights to a soft, golden glow, and picked a playlist of slow songs she used to love. The ones we used to dance to in our kitchen late at night, laughing like we had all the time in the world. I wasn't trying to buy her love. I wasn't trying to bribe her with food or grand gestures. I just wanted her to see me again, to remember us, to remember why she married me. When she walked through the door that night, I saw the flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Wow," she murmured, glancing around the candlelit room. For a second, just a second, I thought I saw something else. Gratitude, maybe. A glimmer of warmth. She kissed my cheek, sat down, and smiled. For the first time in months, things felt normal. We ate together, and she complimented the food. She laughed, genuinely laughed, when I joked about how I was secretly a better cook than her. The conversation flowed easily, the tension that had settled between us for so long finally beginning to lift. For the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back. Then, after her third glass of wine, everything fell apart. It was subtle at first. She leaned back in her chair, her expression loosening, her words coming slower, freer. I didn't think much of it, until she set her glass down, looked at me, and said, "You're a nice guy, Mark. That's why I'm here." Something in her tone made my stomach twist. "What do you mean?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She exhaled a soft laugh, tilting her head. "I mean, I've never really been attracted to you. Not in that way." The room went silent. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to stay still, to listen, because something told me she wasn't done. She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand, studying me like I was some puzzle she had finally figured out. "You're sweet. You're safe. That's why I married you. But you're not my type." I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. "And what exactly is your type, Emily?" She smiled, as if indulging me. "Someone rougher. Someone darker. Someone who breaks the rules." She took another sip of wine, her gaze drifting like she was lost in a memory. "And when I met him," she continued, "I just couldn't resist." She trailed off, but she didn't need to finish. I already knew. I knew what she was saying, what she had done. I sat there, nodding like a fool, as my wife poured out truths that shattered me. And then, she smirked. She smirked, as if expecting me to laugh, to understand, to accept that this was just the way things were, that this was just how life worked. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just sat there, letting her words sink into my bones, cementing themselves in my mind. This wasn't an apology. It wasn't even regret. It was just a drunken justification. And at that moment, I realized I didn't need to fight. I didn't need to explain why what she had done was wrong, because she already knew. She just didn't care. I stood up, gathering the plates, my movements slow, deliberate. "I'm heading to bed," I told her. She blinked up at me, confused. "You're not mad?" I forced a small smile. "No, not at all." And I wasn't, because by the time the sun rose, I would be gone. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. The room was quiet except for the rhythmic sound of Emily's breathing beside me. I turned my head, watching her sleep. Peaceful, undisturbed, as if she hadn't just set fire to our marriage hours ago with a few drunken words and a careless smirk. "I was never really attracted to you. You were safe. I met someone my type." The words replayed in my head, each one twisting like a knife in my chest. I felt nothing. Not sadness. Not rage. Just a cold, numbing realization that I had been living a lie. I had spent 2 years trying to be the best husband I could be, believing that love meant effort, that if I worked hard enough, she would see my worth. But she never did, because she never valued me to begin with. I closed my eyes, remembering the way she had said it. She hadn't been apologetic. She hadn't even hesitated. She had smiled, smirked. She had looked me in the eye and told me, without an ounce of remorse, that I was nothing more than a comfortable choice. A financial safety net. Someone to take care of her while she sought passion elsewhere. And she had expected me to accept it. Expected me to nod, to maybe be hurt for a moment, and then move on. Maybe she thought I would even try harder. Fight for her. Beg her to love me. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Because in that moment, I understood something crystal clear. Emily wasn't someone I had lost. She was someone I had never truly had. And I was done trying to hold on to something that had never been real. The hours passed slowly. At one point, she stirred in her sleep, shifting closer to me, mumbling something incoherent. Her hand brushed against my arm. A few hours ago, that simple touch would have meant everything to me. Now, I felt nothing. She didn't deserve my touch. She didn't deserve me. I let my gaze drift to the digital clock on the nightstand. 4:37 a.m. I had to move fast. I slid out of bed quietly, careful not to wake her. I already had my bag packed, just a simple duffel with a few essentials. The rest? It didn't matter. She could keep it. The house. The furniture. The life I had built for us. Because none of it meant anything anymore. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and my wallet, pausing only once to look back at her sleeping form. A part of me wondered if she would even notice I was gone. Would she wake up and feel the emptiness next to her? Would she reach for me, only to find cold sheets? Would she even care? It didn't matter. I was done waiting for her to care. I walked out the door without a sound, leaving behind everything, except my dignity. The morning air was crisp as I stepped outside. I took a deep breath, letting the cold fill my lungs. It was the first time in a long time I felt like I could actually breathe. I wasn't sure where I was going. I just knew I wasn't coming back. The first call I made was to my lawyer. I want the divorce papers drafted immediately, I told him. No discussions. No delays. Next, I called my accountant. I want my name off every joint account. Any shared investments. Liquidate my portion. By the end of the day, my accounts would be locked down, my assets secured. Then, I called my family. I didn't tell them everything. Just enough. If she reaches out to you, don't tell her anything. Don't entertain her. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. They knew if I was calling them at dawn, it meant something serious had happened. And that was it. No notes. No explanations. No closure. Just silence. By the time the sun rose, I was miles away. And Emily? She woke up alone. To an empty house. To the weight of her own choices. I didn't need to be there to see it. I didn't need to hear her reaction or deal with the tears she might have shed, if she even shed them at all. Because at the end of the day, she had made her decision. And now, so had I. I wasn't the man who screamed. I wasn't the man who begged or pleaded. I was the man who vanished. And that was the only revenge I needed. The highway stretched ahead of me, endless and open, the early morning sky still cloaked in a deep shade of gray. I had been driving for hours, the weight of everything I left behind slowly sinking in. But it wasn't regret. It wasn't sadness. It was freedom. For the first time in years, I felt untethered. No more walking on eggshells. No more wondering why I was never enough for her. No more pretending that the woman I loved hadn't been slowly erasing me from her life. Emily might have shattered our marriage, but I had chosen to walk away from the wreckage. And now, I was never looking back. As I drove, my phone vibrated on the passenger seat. I glanced at the screen. Emily. I let it ring. A minute later, another call. Then another. And another. By the time I reached the city limits, my voicemail notification was blinking, and a flood of messages had started pouring in. I didn't open a single one. She could cry, she could scream, she could beg for an explanation, but she had already gotten all the answers she needed. She had told me I wasn't enough. She had admitted she had found someone better, and I had finally given her exactly what she wanted. She was free of me. She just hadn't expected the cost of that freedom. By the time I stopped at a gas station, the sun was beginning to rise. The world was waking up, oblivious to the fact that my life had just taken a sharp, irreversible turn. I stepped out of the car, stretched my legs, and leaned against the hood, letting the cool morning air clear my head. I checked my phone. 10 missed calls. A string of frantic texts. Mark, where are you? I just woke up, and you're gone. What the hell? Mark, this isn't funny. Answer me. Did you seriously just leave? Without saying anything? Mark, please. We need to talk. I don't understand what's happening. I scoffed. Of course, she didn't understand. She had never expected me to leave. She had expected me to stay, to swallow my pride, to keep being the reliable, predictable man who would always put her first, no matter how many times she pushed me aside. But I wasn't that man anymore, and she was about to learn exactly what life without me looked like. I ignored the messages and made one last call. To my lawyer. Send the papers, I said, my voice steady. Understood, he replied without hesitation. No contact, just delivery? Exactly. No explanations. No apologies. Just cold, hard reality. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. I pulled back onto the highway, the city growing smaller in my rearview mirror. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. Because I wasn't running away. I was finally walking toward something better. A few weeks passed before I heard about Emily again. Not because I reached out. Not because I cared. But because when someone like Emily unravels, the news spreads like wildfire. It started with the divorce papers. She didn't see them coming. After all, in her mind, I was supposed to be safe. Predictable. The kind of man who never truly leaves, no matter how many times he's pushed aside. So when she opened that envelope and saw the cold finality of it, no explanations, no apologies, no fight. Just my signature sealing the end of our marriage, she panicked. I heard from my lawyer that she tried to call. She sent emails. She even showed up at his office, demanding to know why. Why is he doing this? Why won't he talk to me? As if she hadn't already answered those questions herself the night she admitted she was never attracted to me. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. At first, she refused to sign the papers. She dragged her feet, hesitated, tried to act like she had some sort of control over the situation. Maybe she thought if she stalled long enough, I'd come back, that I'd miss her. But then, reality hit. And it hit hard. The financial settlement was her first wake-up call. She had always lived comfortably, thanks to me. The house, the vacations, the lifestyle, she never had to think twice about money. But the moment I walked away, that security vanished. She burned through her share of the settlement fast. Parties, shopping sprees, nights out with the same shallow friends who had cheered her on when she thought she had freedom. She convinced herself she was finally living the life she deserved. Until the money ran out. And when she started asking for help, those same friends disappeared one by one. Because people like her attract the same kind of people, selfish, temporary, only around when things are fun. When the fun was gone, so were they. And then came the real disaster. The other man. The one she had risked everything for. The one who was supposedly her type. She found out she was pregnant. Not planned. Not expected. And the moment she told him, he vanished. No calls. No texts. Nothing. She had gambled our marriage for him. And in the end, he left her with nothing but a ruined life and a child he wanted no part of. I only found out because a mutual acquaintance couldn't resist passing along the gossip. Did you hear? Emily's pregnant. The guy bailed. She's completely on her own now. I just nodded, letting the words settle in. Not because I cared, but because, deep down, I always knew this was how her story would end. People like Emily don't think past the moment. They chase thrills, excitement, the idea of freedom, never considering the cost. She had believed she was escaping something when, in reality, she had been running straight into a wall. And when she finally hit it, there was no one left to catch her. The house. She lost it. The friends? Gone. The life she thought she deserved? Shattered. She was alone. Completely and utterly alone. And the best part? I didn't feel a damn thing. No pity. No satisfaction. Just nothing. Because Emily wasn't my problem anymore. She never had been. I had walked away. And for the first time in my life, I was free. Years passed. Not quickly, not in a blur, but in steady, deliberate steps forward. My life didn't become some grand, dramatic success story overnight. There were no sudden riches, no wild romances, no movie-worthy reinventions. Just peace. A quiet, steady rebuilding of myself. I learned to enjoy the silence, to embrace my own company, to stop measuring my worth by how much I could provide for someone who never saw my value. I had moved on. And then, one day, she found me. It was a crisp autumn afternoon. I was at home, sitting by the window with a book in hand, the golden sunlight stretching long shadows across the wooden floor. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I set the book down, stretched, and walked to the door. When I opened it, I froze. There she was. Emily. She looked almost the same. Her hair was neatly styled, her clothes carefully chosen, put together, as if she wanted to present an image of someone in control. But her eyes told the real story. They were tired, searching, desperate. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She stared at me, waiting for some kind of reaction, some flicker of emotion. She got nothing. Finally, she swallowed hard and broke the silence. "I've been trying to find you for years," she said, her voice trembling just slightly. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Well, you found me." She shifted on her feet, clasping her hands together. "Mark, her voice cracked. She cleared her throat, took a deep breath, and started again. "I needed to see you. I needed to tell you how sorry I am." I didn't move, didn't respond. She took my silence as permission to continue. "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. And I've paid for it every single day since." She spoke fast, her words spilling out in messy desperation. She told me everything. The failed relationships, the financial ruin, the loneliness, the child she was left to raise alone. Her hands trembled as she wiped away the tears forming in her eyes. "I thought I could have it all," she whispered. "I thought I could find excitement somewhere else and still keep you. But I was wrong. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone." She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "Please, Mark. I need you. I never stopped needing you." I exhaled slowly. I wanted to laugh. Not out of amusement, not even out of cruelty, just at the sheer, bitter irony of it all. Because this was exactly what I had predicted. People like Emily never think about consequences until they're drowning in them. She thought she was making a choice that would set her free. And now she was standing here, begging to be let back into the very life she threw away. I leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with her. "You made your choice, Emily," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I wasn't your type, remember? So go find your type and see if he wants you now." Her face crumpled. She flinched, as if my words had physically struck her. But I wasn't done. "I don't care what you regret," I continued, my tone cold and final. "I don't care how much you've suffered. That's your burden to carry, not mine." She opened her mouth to say something, but I stepped back. And then, without another word, I closed the door in her face. I didn't stand there, listening for her reaction. I didn't wait to see if she would knock again. I simply walked away. No anger, no satisfaction, just the quiet understanding that this chapter of my life had ended long before she realized it. Losing her had hurt. It had torn me apart in ways I didn't know I could break. But it had also forced me to rebuild. And I wasn't about to let her drag me back into the ruins. She had to live with the life she chose, just like I had to live with the life I was finally free to create. As I walked away from the door, from her, I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no vindication, just a quiet, steady peace. Emily had stood there, tears in her eyes, pleading for something that no longer existed. Us, but us, had died the moment she confessed, over candlelight and cheap wine, that she had never truly wanted me. She had shattered our marriage with a smirk, and now, years later, she thought she could piece it back together with regret. But I wasn't interested in fixing something that should have never existed in the first place. I sat back down by the window, picked up my book, and flipped it open to where I left off. For a while, I just sat there, staring at the words on the page without really reading them. Outside, the wind stirred the fallen leaves, swirling them in chaotic patterns across the sidewalk. And just like that, she was gone. Maybe she stood there for a while, hoping I'd change my mind. Maybe she cried. Maybe she cursed me. Or maybe, just maybe, she finally understood that this time, she was truly alone. I didn't know. I didn't care. The truth is, I had spent too much of my life worrying about what Emily wanted, about what she needed. I had twisted myself into the perfect husband, the perfect provider, the perfect safe option, only to realize that no amount of effort could make someone love you the way you deserve to be loved. That's the thing about people like her. They take and take, never thinking about what happens when the well runs dry. And when the consequences finally catch up to them, they come crawling back, expecting the door to still be open. But I had slammed that door shut, and I had no intention of ever opening it again. Some people think closure is a conversation, a moment of clarity where everything suddenly makes sense. But that's a lie. Real closure isn't about getting an apology. It's about accepting that you'll never get one that truly matters, and walking away anyway. If you had asked me, back then, what I would do if my wife ever betrayed me, I don't think I would have had an answer. I would have liked to believe I'd stand my ground, that I'd leave with my dignity intact. But the truth? I probably would have fought for her. I probably would have begged, because I believed in love, because I believed in us. But when the moment actually came, when she showed me who she really was, something in me snapped into place. And I finally understood. She wasn't worth fighting for. She never had been. So I walked away, not just from her, but from the version of myself who would have once stayed, who would have made excuses, who would have allowed himself to be treated like a second choice. That man was gone. And the man sitting here now, the man who closed the door without hesitation, he was better for it, stronger, wiser, and, most importantly, free. Maybe she thought I was her biggest mistake. But the truth? She was mine, and I was never going to make it again. So let me ask you something. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have stayed and fought for someone who never valued you? Or would you have walked away? Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes, the greatest gift you can give someone who betrays you is your absence. And sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away and never look back. Looking back, I don't regret leaving. If anything, I regret not leaving sooner. Because the truth is, when someone shows you who they really are, when they tell you they don't value you, you have to believe them. You have to stop making excuses for people who don't deserve you. I spent years thinking love was about sacrifice, that if I just tried harder, things would get better. But love isn't about how much you're willing to endure. It's about mutual respect, about knowing your own worth and refusing to let anyone take it for granted. So if you find yourself in a situation like mine, whether it's a marriage, a friendship, or any relationship where you are constantly giving and never receiving, ask yourself this: is this really love? Or is it just fear of walking away? Because let me tell you something, being alone, it's not the worst thing. The worst thing is being with someone who makes you feel like you're not enough. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is leave. And sometimes, walking away isn't just about losing someone else. It's about finding yourself again.